Hello friends and welcome to my April TBR. We will see how long the baby naps and lets me do this so that we can get through this. I have a lot going on in April book-wise. I fully had intended to kind of take April super easy. I read a lot in March for Realmathon and we have a couple pretty big competitive readathons coming up in May and June. Neither of those have been announced yet, so we're not going to talk about those quite yet, but May and June are going to be crazy. So I fully intended to take April super easy and just not read a lot, take some time to mood read. And then I decided to do Orilium. And then other readathons kept coming up. And I was like, maybe I should do 30 books in 30 days. So I'm low-key maybe doing 30 books in 30 days. I'm not holding myself to it. I might end up changing my mind. But if I end up getting like a week into April and I've managed to read a book a day, we may continue. Otherwise, I might decide to give up and save my mental health. But anyway, I have a lot to read and now I'm questioning all of my life decisions. But anyway, let's just get into it. So first we have a month-long readathon that I'm going to talk about first because it's not like, I don't have anything specific picked for it. It's pretty low-key. This is TBR Takedownathon. This is being hosted by Jess from the Hex Library. It's a month-long readathon. There is a bingo board, but a lot of the spaces are pretty vague, so you can kind of just fit whatever you're reading anyway into it. There are also badges based on, I believe, how many bingos you get, but then also I think you get badges for like how many pages you've read. So I will link Jess down below. Go check out what she's doing over there. I will be participating in that, but like I said, it's pretty low-key. You can just kind of read what you read and then look at the bingo board and fit things in for it. So I don't have like a TBR ahead of time. I am doing in 2024 a Friends reading challenge. Friends as in like the show Friends. This is, I can't remember who it was hosted by. It was actually a StoryGraph challenge from 2023, but I only found out about it at like the end of 2023. So I actually ended up deciding to do it in 2024. In total, there are 104 challenges for this. There are 52 kind of main challenges that are based on episodes of Friends, and then there are 4 monthly challenges every month that are kind of loosely based on a theme. So the way that I've been doing it is that I've been kind of focusing on the monthly challenges every month, and then the other 52 challenges, I've just kind of been like, as I finish books, I look down through them. Some of them are more specific than others. For some of them, a lot of them I've just been able to kind of mark things off. I am kind of getting to the point where there are a lot that are kind of at the top of the list that have not been marked off that I'm going to have to start being a little more intentional. My cat is running around playing with stuff. With things, but for right now I'm just kind of like playing it by ear. But for April, we are focusing on Joey, their character kind of traits of his. So the first challenge for April is to read a book with the name of a food in the title. I had a hard time with this. I looked through all of my books. You wouldn't think that this would be that hard. I kind of would have thought that this would have been easier. I'm kind of stretching this a little bit. I don't know if you could hear that or not, but the cat is going insane. I'm stretching this a little bit. So for this, I'm reading Daughter of the Salt King by A.S. Thornton. Salt is like kind of a food, right? I mean, you put it on food, you eat it. It's not like something that you eat by itself. So I don't know that it technically counts as a food, but it's definitely an edible substance, and you put it on things and then eat that food. So I think it counts. This is a Middle Eastern fantasy about a girl who is the princess of this nation, and she's very oppressed. I believe it's kind of she's almost being sort of like held captive against her will and treated very badly by her father. And one day she discovers that her father, her father's success in his kingdom is based on the fact that he actually has a genie. So she discovers the genie, and I believe she and the genie kind of team up. I've been wanting to read this for a really long time since I got it. I got this in an unplugged book box. It's beautiful. It has a beautiful naked cover that's like all sparkly. It's gorgeous. And I've just been really intrigued by it. It is like 450 pages long, but we'll see. We'll see how we do with that. The next two challenges are a little vaguer, and they're a little bit more like you don't really know until you've read the book. So I'm gonna kind of just like not pick anything specific for them, and we'll just kind of go from there. Sorry if the camera angle moved. I feel like my tripod, the tripod that I bought is not very good, and it keeps just kind of going. Anyway, so the first challenge is a book that will make you laugh. And this is, again, it's kind of, you're not really gonna know until you actually read the book. I have some like fun like rom-com-y romances, so I'm hoping that one of those will end up working for this. This is just gonna be something I'm just gonna kind of like keep in the back of my head, and as I read throughout the month, hopefully I'll find something that this works for. And then same with a charming main character. Again, I kind of feel like I'm not really gonna know this until I actually read the book and know for sure that we have a charming main character. So we'll play that by ear. The last challenge, however, is a little more specific. So the fourth challenge for the month of April is a book that starts with a J. I did not have very much on my TBR that started with J. So I've ended up going with Joshua and the Cowgirl by Cheryl Woods. This looks like from the cover it's actually a Christmas story, so I don't know how I feel about reading that in April. I mean, I live in Maine. We did get snow not that long ago, and we're maybe getting more snow this upcoming week, but we are, believe it or not, headed into spring. So I'm not sure how I feel about reading a Christmas story, but you know what, it is what it is. This is actually only the first half of this. It's 2 books in one. This is a romance novel. I didn't even read the synopsis. I'm not even sure what it's about. Sometimes these Harlequin romance novels are not always the best quality. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're really not, so we'll see. Moving on to Orilium. So I feel like every year Orilium comes up and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to participate in it this year. Like, it's just kind of a lot. It's a very fantastical, amazing, creative readathon that G has come up with. She's come up with this whole world that it takes place in, and I just feel like every year it gets a little more complicated, and it overwhelms me a little bit, but at the same time, I'm not doing like everything with it. I'm just kind of have picked my career. I'm gonna do the prompts associated with my career, and that's it. I did at one point create a whole character and then do like the guild. I think there was like a quiz. I don't remember all of the details of what I'd originally come up with, but this year I've decided to be a Feywild cartographer. So I have to read 7 books for this, and I may end up regretting all of my life decisions, but it's fine. It is what it is. So first, I have to do elemental studies, which is a source of light on the cover. And I've chosen Joshua and the Cowgirl for that. We have a lantern on the cover with a little tea light in it, so we're counting that. Next, we have shape-shifting. And for that, you have to read a book that has been blurbed by, or a book by an author that was blurbed on the cover of the last 5-star read that you had. I feel like there was a less complicated way to say that. My last 5-star read was Heartstopper Volume 1, and the only blurb on the cover of that is by Rainbow Rowell. So I am reading Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. This is the second book in the Simon Snow series. This is like very like Harry Potter fan fiction. I mean, obviously it's not, because she wouldn't have been able to publish it if it really was, but like it's so similar to Harry Potter. And it's essentially if Harry and Draco fell in love. That's kind of, it's what this is. I read Carry On a very long time ago. like probably like 5 years ago. And I don't remember loving it. I did enjoy it, but I don't remember loving it. Next, we have animal studies, and for that, we need to read a book with a yellow title. And again, I'm kind of stretching this a little bit because I need to for my sanity. We're using Daughter of the Salt King for this one. Gold is yellow, right? It has gold. That works, right? Yeah. Next, we have astronomy, and for this, you had to read a book recommended to you based on your zodiac, and this was really hard. Hi, editing Stacy here. Also, sorry, my voice is super froggy. I have a cold. So this lighting is really weird. I'm not sure what's going on there. Anyway, I'm throwing this out there if you are having trouble, if you're doing Orilium and you're doing this class and you're having trouble finding a zodiac recommendation. My friend Stephanie from Stephanie's Bookverse actually has a whole playlist on her channel where she did recommendations for every single zodiac sign, and I think they're really thoughtful and really well put together. I sort of forgot about it, honestly, while I was deciding, and then in my mind, after I did remember about it, in my mind I thought that I had either already read all of the books or that there were a couple like chunky books on there that I didn't want to read this month because I wanted to read things quicker. Although there actually was one book that is a little shorter and a little faster read that I have not read yet that I very well could have chosen for this. But it's fine. We've already got what we've got. But like I said, if you're having trouble with this prompt, go check out her channel, check out the playlist, and find the video for your zodiac sign and see what she recommends. I'm a Libra. The best, in my opinion. We're the best zodiac sign. And so I spent a long time scouring the internet trying to find Libra recommendations and then trying to actually see if I could actually get those books. And that ended up being harder than I thought it was going to be. It was hard not only to find a book that I was actually interested in, but it was also hard to then find that book accessible to me without having to buy it. But I did finally find one. So this is Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I think the female character here is a weather girl. She's a meteorologist. And I believe her boss is getting divorced or has gotten divorced or is breaking up. Something is going on with her boss. And so she teams up with one of her other like fellow coworkers to try to get their bosses back together because it's making their work life very, very difficult. And so they're trying to get these two people back together and they fall in love in the meantime. It sounds pretty cute, so I'm here for it. Next we have Alchemy, and for this you had to read a book with a circle on the cover. And so I'm going to be reading Fairy Tale by Stephen King. It has this like circle thing on the cover. This is quite a long book, so I'm scared. But I'm reading this for Jess from This Kiwi is doing a Stephen King read-along for the month of April. It's not super like structured. You don't have to read any specific book. You just have to read like Stephen King. So this is the only one I managed to fit onto my TBR. It'll have to do. But I wanted to participate in some way. So this I believe is his like YA fantasy, and I've heard that it's very, very different from anything else that he has read, and that a lot of people who don't even really like Stephen King really liked this book. It's about a boy who discovers some kind of like magical world, I think. I'm not really sure, but I think it sounds really fun, and I wanted to read at least one Stephen King thing this month to support Jess. All right, next we have kind of a fun one. So we have Inscription. And for this one, we have to take 3 books and write them on a piece of paper and pick them at random. This is my little Outlander bowl that I got from the Unplugged book box. It's Jamie and Claire. If you know, you know what that scene is. Anyway, so we have in here 3 books that I do need to read this month. So I will be reading all 3 of them regardless, but one of them will just actually be on my Orilium TBR. So we have Manacled. I can't remember who that is by. It's not actually a book, technically, it's fan fiction, but this is Stephanie from Stephanie's Bookverse. It's her patron buddy read for the month of April. It's a Draco and Hermione like romance fan fiction. I think it's pretty dark. I think it's set in a world in which Harry did not win against Voldemort, and so it's like I think it's pretty dark. Then we have, it's also very long, I think. Then we have Flawless by Elsie Silver. Claire from Claire's Creative Corner is hosting a read-along of the whole, I think there's 5 books, the Chestnut Springs series, and Flawless is the first book. I don't know that much about it, except that it is cowboy romance. That's all I needed to know. I know people love this series, so I'm really excited to get into it. Leandra from the TBR Zero and Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading are also joining her for that. And then we have At First Bite by Olivia Dade. This is a romance about a woman who breaks up with her fiance and then has to move into a house next door to him and across the road from his brother, who is the reason that they broke up. And I believe she falls in love with the brother. Sounds like a messy fun time to me. And this is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading's Patreon pick for March and April. So I have to pick one of these. Again, I'm going to read them all, but one of them is actually going to be on my Orilium TBR. So, and we have Manacled. So, I mean, I was going to read all of them anyway, but. And finally, we have Demonology, which is to read a book that you did not pay for. And so for that, I am reading a book I got out from the library. This is X by Sue Grafton. This is the 24th book in her Kinsey Milhone series, which is she's like a private detective. It's a very procedural series and at times can be pretty slice of life. And I know that for some people, they find it a little dry and boring, but I personally have really enjoyed it, although I am starting to get a little tired of the series. The last book that I read, W is for Wasted, was not great. It wasn't terrible, but it was some of the books, not all of them. Some of them have more plot than others, but some of them are very character driven and don't have a lot of plot. And the W is for Wasted was one that was very character driven and really just focused a lot on Kinsey and a lot of her sort of like relationship hang-ups and family stuff. So it didn't have, it was a little bit of a slog to get through. I'm hoping this will be a little more fast-paced and that I'll be able to get through this a little faster, but we'll see. Alright, then we have a couple Patreon readathons to talk about. 3 Patreon readathons, actually, to talk about. So first we have Lexi from Books with Lexi is doing a Patreon readathon. We have not received, as of the time that I'm filming this, the details of this, so I'm not 100% sure what the prompts are going to be, how in-depth it's going to be, how specific the prompts are going to be. I know in the past some of her Patreon readathons have been pretty broad, where you can really read whatever you're reading, and it was more based on page count than having specific prompts, but I'm not sure what this one is going to be. So this one may be a little bit more specific, so we'll see. Bree from Four Paws in a Book is also doing a Patreon round of Scatagorathon this weekend. So the way that Scatagorathon works is that you have a list of 6 prompts and you have 6 random letters. You roll a d6 twice and you get a prompt and a letter, and you have to find a book that matches the prompt while having at least one word in the title that starts with the random letter. I have pre-rolled. You can roll as you go. You can pre-roll. I've pre-rolled 3 books. I figure it's a 72-hour readathon. We'll do 3 books since I'm maybe trying to do 30 books in 30 days. And my first roll, I got next in a series, and I got the letter F. So I'm going to be reading Miss Frost Says I Do by Kristen Painter. This is the 7th and last book in Kristen Painter's Jane Frost series, which is like a cozy mystery series that's a spin-off of her Nocturne Falls series. Her Nocturne Falls series is a paranormal romance series set in Nocturne Falls, which is kind of this paranormal safe haven for all these paranormal creatures. We have vampires, we have werewolves, we have various kinds of elves. There's lots of other things. So Jane Frost is a winter elf. She's actually the princess of the winter elves. She is Jack Frost's daughter. She has several love interests throughout the course of the series, and finally in this last book, as the title suggests, she's getting married. I'm not going to tell you to who, because that would spoil. At one point there's like a love triangle, at one point there's like a love quadrangle. It's not a super smutty series. I actually could have done with a little more smut, to be completely honest with you. It's not even really closed door, it's just that there's no smut in it. So beware of that going in. The Nocturne Falls series, on the other hand, does actually have smut. But anyway, so this is the last book in the series. She's getting married. I'm assuming some shenanigans are gonna go on, and there's gonna be something else that she has to figure out. I'm kind of glad for the series to be over. Most of them have not had very much of a mystery, to be completely honest with you, and some of the mysteries have been stupid. The last book I actively like almost DNF'd. It was essentially, I don't even remember what it was called, but it was essentially Jane bringing her fiance to the North Pole to meet her parents and to see if he could handle her royal life. And they sort of like, Kristen Painter sort of like made up a mystery to go along with it just to make the book more interesting, but it really could have been a novella or like the first chapter of this book. Like, it didn't need to be a whole book. It was, anyway. But we'll be reading that. And finishing off that series, I'm very happy about it. Alright, my second roll, I got a 2024 release, and I got the letter M. So I'm going to be reading Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands by Heather Fawcett. This is the second book in the Emily Wilde series. It's kind of a cozy fantasy-ish, although it did get a little darker than cozy fantasies normally do. Following Emily Wilde, who travels the world investigating fairies and looking into fairies and learning more about fairies. She has kind of a enemies to friends to lovers situation in the first book with, not really lovers, it's kind of a slow burn romance, but she has a situation in the first book with her colleague Wendell Bambleby, who is such a fun character. He's like kind of like Gilderoy Lockhart if Gilderoy Lockhart wasn't like a complete asshole. Like, he's just sort of this like very charming guy who can just get anybody to do whatever he wants, but he really is a good guy, like at the bottom of everything. And I really enjoyed the first book. I'm not entirely sure the plot of the second book, but I am excited to continue on with it. I know that it takes place in a different location than the first book did. I'm excited to continue on. And then we have recently added to TBR, and I got the letter E. So I'm reading The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I took this out of the library actually before Weekend of Peace for Realmathon and had intended to read it then, or at least had it as an option to read then. So I think having it freshly out of the library counts as being new to my TBR. I don't know a ton about this, except that I think it's kind of weird. It's like maybe a little magical realism, and I think it's very sad and emotional, but it's not very long, so we'll see. It's about a boy, a middle-aged man who comes back to his childhood home, and he travels back to where he was friends with a little girl when he was 7, and kind of like relives some things that happened in his childhood. I don't think I've ever read anything from Neil Gaiman, so I'm excited to read my first Neil Gaiman. I've heard really great things about this book. I think it is going to be quite sad, but anyway, I've heard good things. And the last Patreon readathon I have that I know about as of right now is going to be taking place the third week of April, and it's going to be a week-long readathon from Brittany Loves Reading with her patrons. I don't know the details of it yet. We have not, I believe it's going to be kind of a play-as-you-go situation, or I think that's the way that she's going to be recommending it, but we haven't received the details yet, so I can't really plan much on that. Stephanie from Stephanie's Bookverse did have a pretty rough round of her monthly TBR game, Starhop, so she did mention that she might be doing some kind of extra round of her 48-hour version of Starhop that she does with her patrons, but we don't know the details of that yet. And then we do have a couple Patreon buddy reads that I was not able to get onto this TBR. So Bree from 4 Paws in a Book. Her Patreon buddy read for the month of April is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I think this is pretty short. It's kind of like a fairy tale-esque story. I'm not gonna try to tell you what it's about because I don't know that I remember. I think I remember, but then I'm also like, is that a different T. Kingfisher book? I think it's the one about the girl whose older sister like marries this guy and he's not nice and she has to figure out how to like rescue her sister from this like abusive situation. Is that the one I'm thinking of? I think that's the one I'm thinking of. If it isn't, I'll just delete this, but I think that's the one that it's about. So I think that's it, guys. It's a lot. It's a lot. And like I said, I am like low-key maybe doing 30 books in 30 days. If I do it, I'm definitely including like graphic novels and like very short things, trying to listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I'm also planning on counting DNFs. I DNF'd a lot of things in March. I'm really in like my DNF era of where I don't want to be reading something that I don't want to be reading. Like if I am not enjoying it, if I'm bored, if I'm feeling like it's just slogging and I'm having to force my way through it, I'm not gonna read it. Like it's fine. I'm pretty happy about that. I honestly never really used to DNF anything. I used to just force myself to get through it. And I'm really happy that I don't do that anymore because I think it's made my reading experience a lot nicer to just be able to like set something aside and be like, you know what, I'm not going to read that and move on with my life. I may also be playing around a little bit with time blocking. This is something that I first saw from Allison on a Book Break. If you've ever seen her channel, I will link her down below. She's fantastic. She does a lot of really creative things over on her channel. She normally has a stop and start buddy read every month where you have random stopping points throughout a book, and when you reach a random stopping point, it's not in the middle of a chapter. I mean, not at like a chapter break or anything. It could just be in the middle of a chapter. You set the book down for 24 hours and then you come back to it. And it's really fun. And she posts videos of her like spoilery thoughts at every like chunk of the book. She's not doing one in April because of Orilium, but I think that's a lot of fun. But anyway, time blocking is where she sort of treats Orilium, she uses it for Orilium specifically, she sort of treats it as an actual like class schedule where she has like random time periods throughout on random days. And she essentially like spins a wheel and picks random books for these random time periods. It doesn't make a lot of sense as I'm explaining it, but I'm sure she'll be posting her videos for that very soon. So I will link her channel down below. You can keep an eye out for that. But it's very interesting and creative. I may be playing around a little bit with that to try to help me kind of stay on track. I'm not doing it for the first week of April, but I may be doing it for the second week of April, so we'll see what I end up doing for that. But anyway, let me know down below if you are participating in Orilium. If you are, what career are you going after? Let me know. Like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and let me know what you're planning on reading in April. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.